And welcome to the program. It is episode number 26 of Swinging for the Fences. And of course, I am Steve Silver. On today's episode, we are talking Mariners offense along with defense and pitching, of course, per the usual. So it should be a fun show. It's episode number 26 and it's coming right now.
Carpet ride continues. This ball club has been amazing all season long.
Man, I love that intro. It never gets old. I know Swanee kind of laughs at it a little bit, but listen. What I like about it is the fact that it blends the old with the new. I don't know, man, it just gives me goosebumps every single time I hear that little Mariners jingle. But like I said at the top of the show, it is episode number 26. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you want to be a part of today's show, you can definitely hit us up in the comment section on YouTube. And if you are watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you along for the ride. Speaking of Swanee, again, for the second straight week, he is not here. He is still recovering from a little bit of a dental injury. Not necessarily going to get into it, but needless to say that it's painful. And yeah, man, that I don't wish that upon anyone. As soon as he recovers, he's also taken off to the East Coast for some family, and then he should be back either next week or the week after. So, you know, you got me for at least a couple more weeks until I can get Swanee back in full swing. So, how about last night? Mitch Garver, the ire of everyone's animosity. Because for all you have to do is look at a stat line to understand that Mitch Garver just is not performing. Last night in the bottom of the ninth, he comes on with one on, nobody out, and of course he clocks one to left field into the bullpen. Mariners win Mariners win with a walk-off. Okay, so we know that Mitch Garver goes large. Okay, great. Did anyone notice that the Mariners offense was non-existent until the bottom of the ninth? Did that dawn on anyone? That for the most part, over the course of this week, outside of a 6-1 victory against the Diamondbacks, the Mariners offense has been, well, pedestrian. And that's where I want to open up today's show, is because I've noticed a trend through 29 games of the season that the Mariners, when they win, are heavily reliant on the long ball. And when they don't, they're not so good. So it also got me thinking about the Mariners hitting philosophy as it pertains from last year. And of course, last year, the Mariners led the world in strikeouts. And of course, we know the entire story. They get into the offseason, they switch out their entire lineup for a lineup that centers around a lot more contact. And so now we get into the 2024 season, and in certain cases, I would say that the Mariners have improved a little on contact. The one area where they're certainly improved is patience at the plate. The Mariners right now rank 9th in walk percentage in Major League Baseball. So that's vastly improved. The Mariners aren't shy on taking pitches and taking walks when they need to, but for the most part, this offense is not improved. Speaking of which, when the Mariners hit a home run, they are 13-6. 13-6. That's not bad. When the focal point of their offense is the long ball, the Mariners are 13-6, which basically means, that is the long and short of their offense for the night. And their pitching is so goddamn good that a 2-run home run is going to win them a game. We saw that. We saw that a few times this week. When they don't, they have trouble manufacturing runs. When the Mariners do not hit a home run, they're 3-7. 3-7. Which begs the question, can this team win baseball games when they can't hit a home run? So far, the answer is no. Kind of. Not really. So, it got me thinking. Just how sound is the Mariner offensive philosophy? Because for what now? A couple years, we've heard the term control the zone. Just exactly what does that mean, control the zone? Does that mean be selective at pitching? Does that mean be aggressive on strikes? What does exactly, control the zone mean? I would probably think that it means be aggressive on strikes. Be patient, swing at strikes. Okay, that's great. So then what's the problem? Julio Rodriguez, kind of a pedestrian week, still has trouble getting extended. Last week we saw his first home run in Colorado. Okay, all that's great. But for the most part, still is having trouble getting extended, still has trouble timing up strikes and putting the ball in play. Ty France looks like he's somewhat starting to come around. This week he was 5 for 20 and hit a couple home runs. That's great. The guy that we thought had finally turned the corner on the season, Cal Raleigh, he had a great week last week. This week, not so much. He was 0 for 14. So the question begs, okay, if we're seeing different results on a week-to-week basis, and we know that the Mariners can win when they hit a home run, what was the point of bringing in a new hitting coach if you're not going to change the philosophy? If the philosophy is control the zone, you bring in a new hitting coach, you bring in Polanco, Garver, Haniger, guys who have a track record of hitting at the major league level. Guys who have done it before. I mean, for fuck's sake, Garver was in a World Series last year. Polanco is known as being, quote unquote, a professional hitter. Well, basically everybody who's at the major league level is a professional hitter. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I would tend to think that's the case. And yet, week after week, we see struggles. Last year, we saw a half a season worth of struggles and a team struggling to be at 500. Guys who had been to the playoffs the year before. Is this a talent issue or is this a philosophy issue? I've asked that question time and time again without necessarily getting a straight answer. What is it? Because clearly, I would think, after being, in this game, being around this game for 30 plus years, I would like to think that I know what talent looks like. I think I would have a decent eye for talent. And I would probably venture to guess that the Mariners have talent. So what is the problem with stringing together at bats? What is the problem with hitting without, this team's problem hitting with runners in scoring position, hitting a sacrifice fly, driving in a run? Why is this team so brutally inconsistent at the plate? So if we've eliminated the fact that, the Mariners have talent, then it must be a philosophical question, a philosophy question, correct? What is it that the Mariners are teaching these hitters, these players, when it comes to approach at the plate? Now, maybe I'm a little old school. Maybe I'm just that guy that believes that in the course of an at bat, you're going to get a fastball, and generally speaking, it's going to be in the first 2 pitches of an at bat. Usually, especially nowadays, players like to use their cut fastball, 4-seam fastball to get ahead, so they can rely on their secondary pitches, which are going to be changeup, slider, sweeper, whatever the case may be. Very rarely we see curveballs. I think yesterday we saw it in Fried, but for the most part, it usually goes that way. And we're not seeing this team be aggressive. In fact, we're not seeing them being aggressive on the fastball. As a matter of fact, more oftentimes than not, we're seeing foul tip. We're seeing, they're waiting off speed pitch to the point when they get the fastball, it's usually fouled away, or they're swinging right through the fastball because it's usually maybe a little higher in the zone. I don't know. I like the idea of being aggressive in counts. I mean, we've seen opponents do it to the Mariners. The Indians did it. I mean, the Guardians, whatever. The Brewers did it. Red Sox did it. Early in counts, not afraid to put the ball in play. It may have not led to a big inning, but it did lead to an inning where they would score a run. Add that up over a couple innings, and all of a sudden now you got a 4-run lead. And yet this team, for whatever reason, bad at-bats, weak contact, not a lot of exit velo, a lot of ground ball outs. So what is it? My mind goes back to the whole control the zone theory, which has produced what I like to call chaos ball. And we've seen that since 2021. We've seen a lot of chaos ball where this team is rolling and this team is firing on all cylinders. Yeah, they're hitting the long ball and they're getting their doubles, and they'll put together a nice string. But for the most part, when the highs are incredibly high, the lows are very low. And yes, right now the Mariners are on a nice run. 4 straight series wins. All that's great. Big win last night in the clutch. Mitch Garver, that was great. But for the most part, it is basically waiting for the 3-run home run to bail you out. That's not going to be sustainable over the course of a season. Your pitching is good, and the pitching right now has been phenomenal. And it's good enough to win right now. But as we stretch this into May and June and we get to the dog days of summer, the question is going to be is not only will this pitching staff hold up, but will the offense do enough to carry this pitching staff? Because one begets the other. You can't have one without the other. And right now it's good enough. A 2-run lead is going to be good enough to do it. But eventually you're going to get in situations where your bullpen might blow one. And you might end up dropping games that you otherwise would win. And there lies the problem, because your offense has to be able to generate more than just a 2-run home run to win. You have to be able to play station-to-station baseball, put the game in motion, be able to check in with an RBI single at least 3 times a game. On top of the 2-run home run. That's the difference between where the Mariners are at currently and where they want to be at the end of the season, which is in the playoffs. Playoff teams know how to beat you multiple ways. And right now, this is basically cut and paste game in and game out for the Seattle Mariners. Check in with a home run and then have your pitching staff bail you out. In the case with the Seattle Mariners, it's your starting rotation, which had a phenomenal week this week. When it was evident this offseason that there was going to be a lot of change, and we saw this roster shuffle, and we saw the names that were coming back in, Mitch Garver, Polanco, Mitch Haniger, I got excited because I know the track record of these players, and they're not bad players. They're still very much in their prime, and they still can very much produce at an above average clip. And yet the season starts and all of a sudden they forgot how to hit. And it just does it. Like it just racks my brain, because I know that over the course of the season, these guys are 260 hitters, 270 hitters, and are, capable of 15 to 25 home runs a year. This is not hard to see. And yet Polanco is not even hitting 200. Garver's not even hitting 200. So if you're going to radically alternate alter your lineup with these type of players, it would probably be common sense that you would bring in somebody to change your philosophy, change your approach at the plate. And the Mariners, just for whatever reason, just didn't seem to do that. And it boggles my mind, because there's no way that this team could be this bad with runners in scoring position, that they can't get that clutch base hit when they absolutely need to get a clutch base hit. My concern moving forward is going to be the sustainability of winning series after series. I mean, last year was a little bit different, but it seemed for like a good 3-month stretch they were alternating series. A series win with the series loss with the series win, and so on and so forth. And I would hate to see this team get into that type of rhythm when really, this team is good. This team is a lot better than they're playing at the current moment offensively. So before we get into it, of course, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you guys are watching at YouTube, go ahead and click the subscribe button. If you want to get in on this conversation, go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section, or get a hold of me on Twitter at SwingPod. And of course, along with the shows on Tuesday afternoon, I'm working on a Sunday special show where we bring in other Mariner YouTube contributors and even fans. I don't have a problem if you want to stop by and shoot the shit on a Sunday afternoon. Hit me up. I'll have you on. We can talk baseball. We can talk shit. It's all good. All right. So, as I mentioned, it was a great finish to last night's game. Mitch Garver, who had, been struggling, got that little goofy little bat flip, that kind of like finally bat flip. He got a pitch right down the center of the plate. And of course, he didn't miss it. And that was his second home run of the week. Got one earlier in the week, and that was nice to see. Honorable mentions this week, of course, Mitch Haniger checked in with a grand slam and a 6-1 win over the Diamondbacks. For the most part, I was happy with this. I was happy with this week. Getting series wins over the two participants in last year's World Series was big. I actually thought the series win over the Texas Rangers was even bigger, just because of the hurdle that was needed. It's that little mental hurdle where you're finally getting over, because let's make no mistake, the Texas Rangers have owned the Mariners over the course of the last couple of years. For the most part, they just put a hurting on the Mariners, and it was nice to see the Mariners, give it right back to them. Coming off the series win against the Colorado Rockies into what I like to call a house of pain for the Mariners. The Mariners, last year they were just awful at Globe Life Park, so it was nice to see that. What it was really nice was Mariner pitching being able to shut down the Rangers offense. I think Corey Seager might have been like 1 for 10 in that series, somewhere along the line. So it was nice to see it. It was nice to see very good bullpen usage in that series as well too. I didn't think Service overthought that. So that was also good to see. And then of course, getting the Diamondbacks in town, the return of Eugenio Suarez, for whatever reason, the guy that every single Mariner fan is supposed to love for some fucked up reason. I don't understand why, because he brings the good vibes. Okay. Well, I have no idea what the fuck that means, but I guess he's a nice guy. I guess that's what it means. And he, spreads joy through the locker room. I guess that's why Mariner fans liked him. Outside of the fact he was only here for 2 years, had a decent 2022, didn't really have that good of a 2023. And that's pretty much it. But yet he goes down in Mariners lore. Me personally, I'd rather take Kyle Seager, but that's just me. I'd even take Adrian Beltre over Gino Suarez, but that's just me. But other than that, taking 2 out of 3 against a scuffling Diamondbacks team that didn't have Paul Sewald in the back of their bullpen, that was a big series win. And then, of course, starting off this Brave series, which is actually kind of a huge series when you think about it. I think the Braves have 7 straight NL East, victories under their belt, have a World Series. This team is a complete team all the way around. Jared Kelenic comes back to Seattle, and of course, he's his statements yesterday with the Seattle press. This dude's a douche. I don't know. I didn't like the fact that he took pot shots leaving out of town. I thought that was an immature thing to do, but whatever, man. He's back in town. And, to get off the series with a win, it's absolutely huge because, I think most came into that series thinking that if they can at least take one, they'll be on the right foot. But now they're in a position to take the series, if not put themselves in a good position to sweep the series. And of course, last night got started with Bryce Miller. Absolutely phenomenal. 7 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, 1 run on 2 hits. And that's the way you start a series. You put your opponent on the back foot. You don't allow them to get in the game, to take the crowd out of it. You just keep pounding strikes in the zone, and that's exactly what Bryce Miller did yesterday. It was a shame that there was no offense until the bottom of the ninth, but say what you will, Max Fried's a pretty good pitcher, but still, you would like to see a situation where the Mariners at least get 2 runs out of that, put themselves in a position where they don't have to rely on the 2-run home run to win it. But it is what it is. But it wasn't just Miller, although Miller did start the week off. This was last Wednesday in Texas. Miller only went 4 innings pitched, 2 runs, 4 hits, gave up 2 home runs, 4 Ks, 5 Ks, 4 walks. That was the start of the week. 2 turns in the rotation. Finished it, obviously, monumental start last night. Castillo had a good start, picking up his second win. He goes 6 in his start, 2 runs, gave up a couple long balls. It was Emerson Hancock, who again continues to impress. Listen, I understand that you guys are waiting for Brian Wu, and everybody just assumes that Brian Wu is going to come back and just be nails. But tip your caps to Emerson Hancock, because you know what, he was in a position where if he wants to establish himself as a major league, as a regular at the major league level in a rotation, I think he's done more than just that. Outside of the start in Milwaukee, we can put that one aside. He's been absolutely fantastic. And this week in the rotation, he didn't disappoint. 6 innings pitched, 1 run, 2 hits. He did give up a long ball, but that's pretty much it. Didn't walk a lot, only 2. He had a very good start, but this is where it starts getting filthy. This is where it gets brutally filthy because George Kirby had the start of the week. Yes, Bryce Miller was good. Logan Gilbert was good, but George Kirby was the shit. This dude was nails. 7 innings of work, no runs, 2 hits, 12 strikeouts, which is a career high for him. That dude was locked in. That dude was unbelievably locked in. Absolutely brilliant performance. Logan Gilbert followed that up with 6 1/3. 2 runs, 4 hits, 9 Ks, which was also a phenomenal start for him. And the Mariners ended up losing that game late, 3-2. And then, of course, Miller last night. So, again, this turned through the rotation. There is nothing that you can really look at and say, there's going to be an area where there's like a down part of it. Not at all. Each member of this rotation stepped up in a big fucking way. And because of that, they were able to do what they were able to do despite the offensive woes. They still did enough to win. And of course the bullpen did its job as well too. I got to tip my cap to the bullpen. There was a couple, I think it was in that loss to the Texas Rangers, I think Saucedo gave up a run in that one. For the most, there was a couple situations where Stanek had a rough go a couple days ago. There were pockets when it came to the bullpen, but overall, it was a good week for the bullpen as well too. Despite the fact we heard news, and we're going to get into it right now, a couple of news and notes before we continue. We'll start off with Matt Brash, who was shut down, which was for me, a very big loss, but it's also not surprising considering how much he was used last year. In his recovery, he was on his throwing program, and the issue wasn't pain when he was throwing. It was the fact that he didn't feel right when he was recovering. So the Mariners have shut him down. He's going to go see an orthopedist to make sure everything is structurally sound. And hopefully we'll hear news on that very soon as to whether or not surgery is going to be needed. If surgery is needed, well then no Matt Brash in 2024. If there is no surgery needed, maybe we see him in the second half of the year at some point. As it stands, we're waiting for Santos to get back. That will be a nice addition to the bullpen, but a tough loss that for the most part until the All-Star break, if not after that to the trading deadline, there's going to be no Matt Brash. And so the question, of course, is, obviously right now they have Andres Munoz in the closer's role, but it would have been nice to have Brash back so we can actually see long-term as the season goes on if there was going to be a switch at the closer's role. But the other piece of news and notes is that Jonathan Clase was sent down to AAA Tacoma, brought back up from Tacoma with Sam Swaggerty, who was obviously in the lineup last night. This is a very good thing for Jonathan Clase. I didn't see a situation where Clase was going to be up here long term. I thought this was always going to be short term to begin with. I also didn't think that he should have gotten called up to begin with anyway. I didn't think that he was ready to handle the responsibility of being an everyday major league player. I guess it was nice that he got his cup of coffee because now he knows exactly what it looks like. But that being said, down in Tacoma, he's going to be able to play every day. And at this stage, this is exactly what you need in his development. He has to keep on playing. Swaggerty has been up. He was a big part of the 2021 season. And what I like about him is he plays multiple positions. He can do a lot of things for this team, which is going to be beneficial, especially with JP Crawford still out, and that should be remedied. That'll be remedied in about a week when JP is set to come off the DL. So Swaggerty's up, and I always like these type of players to begin with, guys that can play in the outfield, guys that can play multiple positions in the infield, and he can give you a nice little component at the plate. Doesn't hit for a lot of power, but he does have the ability to be a little bit of a slap hitter, a little fire plug, a little spark plug off the bench. So that's good to have on the bench. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. Before I continue, I have to say this because it is driving me batshit crazy when I see this on Mariner social media. First and foremost, yes, let's just understand that right now Polanco and Garver have not been hitting consistently well since the start of the season. Understand that. Got it. But there is no way in hell that Tyler Locklear is going to be called up to the big league level in 2024. Something like very, very, very wrong has to happen for him to be called up to Seattle in 2024. Understand that he got into the Mariner organization midway through the 2022 season when he was drafted, and then he hit rookie ball. So he hasn't even played 2 years in the minor league organization. Last year, I believe he only had 20 games at the AA level. This year, it's only 22. The dude has not played above AA, hasn't even put a full season in AA. I understand the excitement around a good young prospect, but right now, considering that he really is a first base only option or a DH, and they gave Mitch Garver a 2-year deal. Mitch Garver is not going to move to the backup catcher position. That's not going to happen. Mitch Garver is going to be your everyday DH. They will give him every opportunity, and probably next year as well. The only way that it happens if Garver gets hurt. Probably. That would be the only way. And considering that he's a primary DH, there's not going to be an opportunity for him to get hurt. That was the plan all along, is to minimize his ability in the field so he doesn't have to spend any time on the DL. So that is the plan. And I would probably assume that you're going to see Garver all year long. Even if he raises his average to 210, he's kind of like in that little 210 to 230 range. Let's just say that. It doesn't matter. He's making 12.5 this year. He's not going anywhere. It just drives me batshit crazy that, we're only 29 games in the season. It's not even May yet, and already there's this trend of, okay, well, let's see next. And it's like, no. How about we just wait and see? Give Garver time to kind of get into things, and he'll be fine. All right. So this week, I wanted to track a few players this week because I thought it would be interesting. These are guys that last week struggled a little bit, and then this week the onus was on. Obviously offensive consistency. And the two names that popped up to me this week were Josh Rojas and Ty France. Last week, they had moments, but for the most part, the consistency wasn't there. This week, Josh Rojas, we've seen Rojas now at the top of the order, which I like. I like that idea. We also have seen Julio at the top of the order, which isn't surprising considering Julio, when he came up, was the leadoff hitter. I still don't like Julio in the second spot, but that being said, we saw Josh Rojas at the top of the order, and he was impressive. He was impressive this week. 5 for 16 this week. A couple multi-hit games, actually one multi-hit game, but for the most part, he only had 1-0 for 4 in the week, putting together, again, a 5 for 16 stretch, a couple of home runs. One of them was a first pitch swinging leadoff home run. I don't know. It's weird because we saw Josh Rojas to start the season. He was down at the bottom of the order, and he was just kind of slowly, quietly producing. That guy that can, that guy in the night spot that has the ability to keep that chain moving to the top of the order. And he did that without a lot of fanfare. And he kept doing it to the point where now everybody was like, okay, well, let's see him kind of move up in the order a little bit. And so he gets moved to the leadoff spot, and he's been very impressive. And I like his approach as well, too, because he is aggressive on the fastball, and he is aggressive early in counts, which is kind of contrary. It's really contradictory to the approach of some of the other guys in the order. And he's not afraid to swing at that first pitch fastball. And as a result, we've seen a lot of him on base as well too, which is exactly what you want in a leadoff guy, the ability just to get on base and be on base consistently. The other guy that I wanted to take a peek at was Ty France. It seemed last week that there were moments where you looked at it and was like, the exit velo was starting to kind of tick up a little bit for him. A lot of hard hit outs. And the thing about that is it's not necessarily the out, it's the manner in which you got out. And it wasn't, yes, there was weak contact, but it wasn't like weak contact as we saw in the first couple weeks of the season. And all of a sudden, Ty France this week had a couple multi-hit games, a couple 2-for-4s for a 5-for-20 stretch this week. Now, that might not seem impressive, but he also did hit a couple home runs this week, which was absolutely fantastic. As a matter of fact, he hit the 2-run shot that helped the Mariners hold on for a 3-1 victory over the Diamondbacks. And what was great about it was the fact that we're starting to see a couple of these guys together in the lineup put together good, solid at-bats. It's not just one guy that's carrying it. We're starting to see now a few guys kind of get over the hump together, which is kind of encouraging because, again, for a team that relies a lot on the home run ball, it means that we're going to start seeing runs produced that obviously are not going to be the long ball. The other guy that I mentioned earlier was Julio Rodriguez. I always have a Julio counter every single week because, as you know, this offense doesn't go without Julio. If Julio doesn't go, chances are pretty good it's going to struggle. And if Julio is going, so does the offense. Last week, he had a monster week, especially in the Colorado series. Julio was impressive. This week, he did have a couple multi-hit games, a couple 2-for-4s, but for the most part, he was 5-for-23, no extra base hits, obviously no long balls, and he did check in with a couple RBIs, but for the most part, it was a pedestrian week for Julio. And for Cal Raleigh, who was coming off probably the biggest week that any Mariner had this season, last week was unbelievable. As a matter of fact, Cal was 6-for-13 last week. 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, 3 run scores. This week, Cal was 0-for-14. Not exactly what you're hoping for a guy that was coming off a hot week. You were kind of hoping for some consistency week to week, and of course, not so much this week for Cal. Found himself in a lot of early holes in a lot of counts, and it just wasn't his week, which is kind of disappointing to see a step back. But for the most part, I don't know how you guys feel about this week. Yes, the Mariners did take the series win in Texas and they took the series win against the Diamondbacks. I had mixed emotions about this because on one hand you had the brilliant pitching performances, but on the other hand you saw a lot of goose eggs and innings, coupled with the clutch home run that was able to win in the ball game. Outside of the 6-1 victory, where it was very, very convincing for the most part, it was in need of a clutch moment in order to win a ball game. So it was very mixed for me because I look at this team and I think this team is far, far, far more capable of producing 5-6 runs a game. And right now we're just kind of, it's like, as long as the long ball comes, so do the Mariners. Speaking of which, outside of the long ball, offensive numbers, league-wide stats. In WRC plus, the Mariners are a 93, which is good for 22nd in the league. The Mariners have scored 106 runs, which is good for 25th. Strikeout percentage, 28.5, which is the best in the league, or the worst in the league, whichever way you look at it. Speaking of which, the Mariners have 300 strikeouts this season, which is also good for the top spot. And the along with that, though, the Mariners have a 9.3 walk percentage, which is good for ninth. So again, the strikeouts are very prevalent, but at least they're working counts and they're drawing walks. So I mean, it does kind of make it feel a little bit better that this isn't just a complete strikeout machine without any show. They're at least getting something out of it, drawing walks and having the ability to get on base. But the way that I look at this is what I said at the top of the show. It's not sustainable. In order for this team to achieve the ultimate goal, they have to be able to drive in runs from multiple different ways. This cannot be something where you can wait for the 3-run home run and hope that your starting pitcher goes 6-7 innings and waiting for that to happen. It's just not a sustainable way to win. And I would like to see this. I would like to see this team play its lineup for the way that it was built, because this team does have speed. This team does have the ability to play the hit and run, take a stolen base or two, take a couple chances and put the game in motion, allow the defense to be able to make mistakes. And, chances are pretty goddamn good that if you show a little bit of heart, it's going to end up producing a lot of runs. And right now, I don't know if this team, how do I say this without being an asshole? That's a good question. Like, I don't want to say this team doesn't have heart. I don't necessarily think that's legit, because I think they do. I mean, obviously, they were able to withstand and then get a walk-off dinger last night. That shows a lot of heart. Maybe I'm just trying to figure out what this team's identity is. What does this team want to be? That's probably the better question. What does this team want to be? And how does this team want to be known as far as winning games? I think we saw that in 2021, that this team had a lot of heart. They were able to come back in a lot of ball games. They were able to win a lot of one-run games. They played a lot of exciting baseball, especially down the stretch in 2021. 2022 was a little bit different. But they were also able to get to the playoffs. And then 2023, I don't think they showed any heart, especially in September. So what does this team want to be? It's a very good question. Remember now, if you guys have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the chat room on YouTube or on Twitter at Swinging Pod. And as we get to the end of the show, I want to know who your winners and losers are for the week. Because again, this is what this show is about. We are not going to be nice. We're not Root Sports. We're not the Mariners. We don't just try to shove nice down your throat or try to spin you guys in any direction. We're just going to call it like it is, and we'll let the chips lay where they might. My winner of the week, though, is George Kirby. I don't know how else you can go with it. I mean, George Kirby had probably one of the best starts I've seen in quite a while. 7 strong, 12 strikeouts, no runs, 2 hits against an offense that is pretty, like, I think they're pretty good. I think Arizona's offense is actually pretty good enough to get them to a World Series, right? And he shut them down. It wasn't even close. It was literally a brilliant start. As a matter of fact, this is coming off the start last week. A start last week where I thought he was pretty brilliant, though, his start before. And now this is a situation where you have two guys in your rotation that look to be automatic wins. Now it's the Randy Johnson theory, right? Where every 5th day when he walks to the mound, you're going to win. where scoring one run is probably going to be good enough. He was that good. Shout out to Logan Gilbert. I thought he was equally as good. And of course, Bryce Miller, who goes 7 yesterday, 10 Ks. That was unfucking believable. 3 straight, 3 turns in the rotation right here, or three starts in a row that were fucking brilliant. Basically shutout baseball. 3 runs total. 3 runs total on 8 hits. 31 Ks, 31 strikeouts and 3 starts. That's fucking unbelievable. My honorable mention this week for a winner is going to be Josh Rojas. I think he deserves some honorable mention because, again, he just goes about it quietly without a lot of fanfare, and he put together, I thought, a solid week that deserves at least some attention for his production. All of a sudden, Josh Rojas is starting to be one of my favorite players. I didn't put a lot of stock into Josh Rojas. I didn't like the trade last year that brought him here. I didn't think that he really played all that great last year. And, coming in, it was going to be questionable to whether or not he was even going to be a replacement level player. But sure enough, both him and Urias have exceeded my expectations. Rojas more. So he put together a good week, and I'd like to see that translate next week as well, too, in the form of some more consistency. So he's my honorable mention. My loser this week is Cal Raleigh. I just got to throw it out there. It is what it is. 0 for 14. It's the feast or famine that kind of drives me batshit crazy with this guy. Like, there's no question that the dude's got power. I like it. He's probably the best defensive catcher the Mariners had since Dan Wilson. So you know what you're going to get behind the plate. But one of the things that makes my dick bust concrete is the fact that this dude he's not really an all-around hitter. Like, he will have, like, as we saw last week, he'll have a very good solid week where he's doing the things that you expect him to do. Plus you'll add in a double, or he'll check in with a couple singles to go along with it on top of the home runs. And it gives you the illusion that maybe he is an all-around hitter, but he's not. He is literally feast or famine. And the good side of it is, oh, okay, it's Cal. And the bad side of it is like, fuck, really? He went 0 for 14? It is what it is. All right. So it was fun. So tonight, though, Mariners Braves game 2 of the 3-game series. As we look forward to this one, game time, I believe, starts at 9:40 Pacific, 9:40 Eastern time. That sucks. I hate being on the East Coast, but it's going to be. It looks like it's going to be Luis Castillo versus Reynaldo Lopez. Interesting matchup when I think about it. Reynaldo Lopez is primarily a fastball pitcher. He's a fastball slider pitcher, does mix in a curveball from time to time, but he throws his four-seam fastball 58% of the time. So this is actually going to be a situation where we should see a little bit more contact from the Mariners. Although, you look at his baseball savant page and all you do is see red across the board. The thing about it is, though, there are going to be opportunities, because you're going to see you're going to see a pretty good hard hit rates, pretty good exit velo off of Lopez. And when you look at his you look at his starts so far this year, he goes, he's had some pretty good starts this year, goes at least 6. But I still think that this is a potential opportunity for the Mariners to, potentially grab a win. And of course, he's going up against Luis Castillo. And this is another good opportunity when you think about it. Castillo, two very good starts in a row for Castillo against the Rockies and the Rangers. When you look about the way he started and you look at the last couple starts that he's had, starting with the loss against the Cubs, which probably should have been a win. He's gone at least 6 innings, hasn't given up any more than 2 runs per start. And especially against that start in Colorado in the cold. Holy shit, was that a great start. But for the most part, it seems to me that he's been dialed back in. So a very good pitching matchup. And I really do believe for the Mariners to win this game, they're going to have to get on the board early. We're talking like first, second inning. The ability to, make Lopez work, which they have been able to do that. They've been able to make starting pitchers work early through a lot of pitches, draw a walk or 2. But the case in point, it's going to have to be get the crowd into this goddamn game early. Get a run in the first inning, maybe get a run in the second inning, and at least give Castillo, give him a breather. At least, that's the big problem when the Mariner offense is struggling early and a pitcher has to go out there and feel like he has to stay perfect in order to keep the team in the game. That that's when all of a sudden he starts to press or he's going to have the bad inning, which is the case with Luis Castillo, because the Mariners just have a problem scoring early in his games, and then he has the big inning, and then it comes unraveled. So I would like to see that happen early against Reynaldo Lopez. Go out there, put 1 on the first, 1 on the second, give Castillo at least a couple run lead, and then watch him go 7 innings. So that's it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I think the Mariners win tonight. I think they lose game 3, take 2 out of 3. And if we are, I just said we were there, but yeah, they take 2 out of 3. So that's going to do it for me. Next week, we will be back Tuesday, same time. I want to thank everybody, and we'll see you next week. Go Mariners.